If you believe the rumors, and there are many of them, Xbox is set to break down some massive barriers that have been erected since the dawn of gaming. It's always been about the walled garden. As you gradually, or in the case of Xbox, aggressively build out your first party, you amass a set of talent that you can only find in one particular place. It's the exclusives that grant some sort of value to your ecosystem because you can only find games from a particular set of talent in one place before maybe they go elsewhere. And Xbox has been playing catch up for the last generation and a half, trying to match what PlayStation and Switch have been doing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those doomers who acts like Xbox hasn't had great exclusives even during the Xbox One generation, like Ori. I'll even throw out Rise Son of Rome. I had a good time with that. Sunset Overdrive. There were good ones, but we know that the cadence wasn't quite there. It feels like 2024 is primed to be the powder keg year for Xbox, where the first-party talent that they invested in during that fateful Xbox showcase during E3 2018 is finally about to blow. Alongside all of the partnerships they've made, games from Activision, games from Bethesda, it looks like this is the year that Xbox fans have been looking for. And just as that's all about to get started, there's now rumors that Xbox may be relinquishing exclusives from their ecosystem. It's led to a lot of debate online that some people don't want other players to have fun with their toys, that some people are too protective of exclusives. I'm not here to tell you necessarily what's right or wrong. I get both sides of the argument, and I don't want to come across too much as a fence rider here because my business side of my brain sees exactly what Xbox is doing. But as someone who studied Xbox for many years, knowing how they handle messaging, how they communicate their ideas, their vision, and the inconsistencies that have been there, I do wonder if Xbox is truly ready for this world where exclusives may be no more. And is that even the case? We're going to investigate everything, so let's get started at the top with the origins of this rumor, which led to tons and tons of reports. For starters, it came from Nate the Hate, where on his podcast, as reported here by PureXbox.com, he says that the game will be arriving at some point during the calendar year in 2024 and should be met with plenty of excitement as it is a title that was in the Game of the Year conversation during its year of release. He further mentions how it was met with high acclaim and was also well received by fans. And here's the part he had to say, quote, "In the calendar year of 2024, Microsoft will bring one of their more acclaimed first-party releases to a competitor system," end quote. Now, that could literally be anything, dating back to even the 360 generation, if you will. There have been plenty of acclaimed games on the Xbox ecosystem, but it took one reset area user to open the door wide open in where they said that this would be Hi-Fi Rush on Nintendo Switch. I found that this was the center of the entire reaction, and I get it. I think Hi-Fi Rush embodies a lot of what Xbox fans have been looking for a long time. I think of the Japanese flair that the game has, hence it's from a Japanese studio, the style, the uniqueness of it, the new IP, the new gameplay mechanics. It just felt like it was encapsulating everything Xbox fans had been asking for. And to know that after maybe a year's time, it may be saying bye-bye to the platform as it moves elsewhere can be frustrating, and I get that. As I mentioned, the business side of my brain says a number of things, like, okay, Xbox has a product here that sold pretty well, that saw over 5 million players in total, and it's probably stagnated by this point, as any single-player game does. Businesses have to diversify their models now to justify the price tags they're selling games at as the costs of game development go up. And so you have to look at things like, in the case of your traditional third-party publisher, Game Pass, Humble Bundle, DLC, early access, things that allow you to monetize your product further before and after the release of your game. With Xbox, it's a little bit trickier. You are Game Pass. You are the platform holder. So if you want to remonetize your game, what do you do beyond a re-release or a definitive edition? You have to go elsewhere. At the same time, is that short burst of revenue that you get in the wave of excitement and shock and awe of your massive changes to your platform worth it for the loyal fans who have been waiting for many since the Xbox One generation for you to get your act together? You can say what you want about the Xbox fan base. They've been the subject of a lot of jokes, but they've been patient and they have been loyal. And that doesn't mean that Xbox has to abide by everything that this fan base desires, but they do deserve to be aptly rewarded. And I don't think this means it's the end of exclusives, but for many people, this feels like the end of Xbox. However, I view it as just the beginning. Now, there are certain examples that have been put out there that make sense. It's been reported as well that Sea of Thieves is one of the exclusives that will be heading to PlayStation and Switch. Meanwhile, Jeff Grubb had this to say on the Games Mess podcast: Sea of Thieves, I'll say I've heard that was one that might be coming to other platforms. When I first started hearing these rumors, I was like, this is probably about Sea of Thieves because I've heard that could come to Switch and PlayStation. Meanwhile, Steven Totillo of GameFile apparently had the same information in pocket, saying Microsoft has looked into launching its hit Xbox and PC multiplayer pirate game Sea of Thieves on PlayStation. A source familiar with the plans for the port tells GameFile. He does mention that over the weekend, a rep from Xbox declined to comment on the matter, and he says at the bottom of this paragraph, I am unable to verify if Sea of Thieves to PlayStation is still an active plan for Microsoft. So this is the possibility of old information floating around once more. But then what I think is the ironclad source for Xbox related news, who is, I can't think of a time my man's been wrong, Jez Corden, had this to say on the matter. Quote, they say there's no smoke without fire. I will say that it's been suggested to me from very trusted, proven sources that Microsoft has been exploring bringing some of its back catalog to other platforms, although some of the details remain vague and unconfirmed. We've reached out to Microsoft to comment and clarify its position on this stuff. But he also says this: I've confirmed with some sources separately over the holiday period that games like Hellblade 2, Avowed, and The Elder Scrolls 6 are still slated to be Xbox console exclusive after the initial rumor mill around moving towards platform agnosticity swirled. Meanwhile, there's my good friend Colin Moriarty, who many years ago had reported that Master Chief Collection was a consideration of going over to PlayStation, saying, I have it on good authority that Master Chief Collection was being talked about on PS4 years ago. Like, I have that on great authority, to which it prompted at the time franchise director of Halo, Frank O'Connor, to comment on the matter, saying that there was never even a line of code glanced at, but that he didn't outright deny that this was a possibility, thus I think lending some credibility to the matter. To me, the biggest problem with Xbox doing this has less to do with the business side of things, more so to do with respecting the consumers who have stuck with you, but also, top of them all, I believe, is the messaging, which has been woefully inconsistent from Xbox for years and years and years, and now this is only going to get worse. Think back to just about a month ago at the time of recording this video. Marvel's Blade gets announced, and what was everybody talking about? Not that Xbox finally got themselves a Marvel game in a first-party studio. No, it was about, is it exclusive? Is it coming to PlayStation? Is it coming to Switch? What's going on here? Why hasn't Game Pass been mentioned? All of the hard work built into announcing a game that is tremendously exciting got washed away by conversations about what platforms it's going to. So if Xbox is watching this, which I know they watch many of my videos, you're probably going to want to make sure that your messaging is airtight, which you haven't done before. The idea of shipping Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves to other platforms, but then trying to communicate to fans that, well, look, Hellblade 2 and Avowed and Elder Scrolls 6, they're going to be here. You already know they're going to ask the question, why? And I think it's about delivery. As someone who runs an Xbox podcast, what I've learned is that many people are cool with the idea of Xbox games making their way to separate platforms via a curated Game Pass app. Now, the expectation for many people, from what I've read online for years, is Switch would be the first step forward. There is Nintendo Switch Online, which features everything from Nintendo 64 all the way to the Sega Genesis, so I could see a Game Pass app being slotted into that expansion pack. I think that would be a pretty good fit for a brand new Switch console, which is rumored to be announced one of these days. I see a new Switch 2 rumor every day, but point being is that is a partnership people envisioned for sure. I think what people didn't consider is to bring these games over to those platforms, you're going to probably have to port the game, and then you may as well sell it a la carte to provide the same exact price proposition that's available in the Xbox ecosystem. You look at the Xbox storefront or a box copy in a store, it's $70. You look at your Game Pass subscription, the same game is there for $15 a month plus hundreds of more all of them first party, many of them day one Game Pass games, and so on, right? It just immediately compels you, for most, to just get involved in Game Pass. So why not provide that same proposition over on these storefronts? Again, I am speaking purely from the business side of things, but Xbox has had a history of mixed messaging. Want an example? Let's go back to 2020. Here's what Phil Spencer had to say about bringing Ori and the Blind Forest and Will o' the Wisps over to Nintendo Switch, where Kotaku, who's interviewing Phil Spencer, said, "Spencer told me it doesn't feel sustainable to consider Xbox games on a case-by-case basis for Switch, and said, in order to really support it, I would want a full Xbox ecosystem somewhere, and that probably means like Live and Game Pass and stuff." He said something similar in July during an interview with GameStar, though the answer has changed slightly. Back then, he said the other competitive platforms aren't really that interested in having a full Xbox experience on their hardware. I cited that answer to him and asked him if that was still the case with Sony and Nintendo, and he said, "I don't want to speak for them. I think they should probably answer that." Meanwhile, if you want something more recently, Satya Nadella had this to say during the FTC hearings about exclusives on the console, and this was back in a Wall Street Journal interview in 2022. Quote, "One of the reasons people pick different consoles is looking at exclusive games that are available. If you think about Nintendo, a platform I love, people think of Zelda, Mario. Those are iconic franchises that are available on those platforms. For us, we have Halo and Forza and things that people love. Sony has their own set of exclusive franchises. So as we're shipping things, we'll definitely have new exclusive franchises coming to Xbox. There's no doubt." So what I would say is that Xbox is probably going to break some barriers and start bringing stuff to other platforms, but you have to remember the sourcing of all of this is from rumors, and while many of these sources are trusted, I would put really Jez Corden at the top of that list. If you're looking for the ironclad statement again, I would put my faith in him the most. But really, we're looking at a ton of rumors right now without the full picture clearly. And typically when rumors get out of hand, Xbox will step out and make a comment. The fact that they haven't, to me, indicates there is some level of truth here and that they want to control the messaging when the time is available. I think back to what happened with the FTC leak, where we learned about the next generation of systems, a Bethesda schedule leak. And Phil Spencer went out on Twitter, maybe because the noise was just too loud, and said, things have changed. And then all of a sudden there was a rumor that Xbox Next was a thing and that we may get the next console generation in 2026, which is vastly different from all the visuals we just saw. This is not to protect Xbox by any means, but it's just that we don't have a clear understanding right now what's happening. But I think we can still talk about the prospect, honestly, of Xbox games going to other platforms. As it stands now, the words of Satya and Phil are this: we're still getting exclusives on Xbox, and if things are going to go over to other platforms, unless, as Phil has said before, things have changed, this should mean that the whole Xbox experience, maybe not just Hi-Fi Rush, maybe not just Sea of Thieves, but a bundle of Xbox games together in, say, a curated app or something far more, is going to come to these platforms. At least based on their words, that's what should be expected. But that's the problem, and something I've highlighted time in, time out on Defining Duke. I've mentioned it on this channel before. Xbox, I love you. Your messaging just is not airtight. You got one person saying one thing, another person saying another, and fans never know what to expect from you. I think most people have made peace with the idea that for years, Xbox has talked about cloud gaming. For years, Xbox has talked about the Samsung TV app. We've seen all that evolve before our eyes. I think if you expected things to remain on Xbox forever, you just haven't been paying attention. However, I get the protection of it, and I feel like, yes, if you just see an individual port of Hi-Fi Rush make its way to Switch, I can get totally why Xbox fans feel betrayed. This is an exclusive that they have become very protective of, because I think, as I said earlier, it exemplifies everything that Xbox fans have been looking for. And just as the powder keg is about to blow of all the exclusives that you invested in, all the studios you've invested in from 2018, 2019, you see this news. It definitely will tick people off. What I would just say is wait for the official word. But yes, it appears that Xbox is set to, at some point this year, break some barriers. In the terms of when we have, at the time of this recording, a developer direct inbound, I would not expect them to do it there. We've heard rumors of a state of play. We've heard rumors of a direct, maybe over there. But in what capacity, we have yet to find out how Xbox is delivering these games. If they're individual, I think there's going to be a lot of trouble. But I think more than anything, as Xbox, who has a history of suffering some of gaming's worst optical blows, that I don't know how the conversation will transform in such a rapid manner if you see your biggest competitor suddenly getting fed Xbox games, and that's PlayStation, of course. I'm not trying to console wars it, but look, I don't know if the optics are there quite yet where this isn't going to look really weak from Xbox, even if they're going to be making more money than ever. So we'll see what narrative takes hold as time goes on, but I just wanted to deliver this information and my thoughts on it today. We'll see what happens. Ladies and gentlemen, fire away down below. I'm sure it'll be eventful down there, and I'll see you later. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.